But at first, it falls upon me to sort of warm you up a little bit and get the sort of juices, the nerd juices flowing. Now, the point here is that I'm not supposed to be an expert in what I've looked up, and I'm certainly not. And it won't have escaped your attention that yesterday was Valentine's Day, and what can make a room full of nerds feel more uncomfortable than talking about love? I'll tell you what, sex. So I thought I'd look at some popular gifts that people tend to give out for Valentine's lovers. These are very commonly given at Valentine's. I wonder if anybody can help identify them. Anybody know what this thing is?
Chlamydia.
Answered that a little too quickly, I can't help it. I think we know what gifts you gave. That indeed is a cuddly version of chlamydia. There's what it looks like. You can see what it's done, a little spiky hair. Chlamydia, it's often symptomless, especially in penises. It can clear up on its own, but don't rely on it. And so if you have chlamydia, do get it checked out. It can be sort of benign for men, but it certainly isn't for women. So just because you're around and got it, let's make sure you sort that out. So let's try another one, shall we? Anybody? No? Are you just being reluctant to answer now? Yeah, okay. Go on, tell us what it is.
No, just loose on.
It's gonorrhea! Give her a clap. Clap. Gonorrhea. See what I did there? It's not actually two testicles, it's just the way that gonorrhea, clap, symptoms. The men, people with penises do tend to get symptoms of this. Not so many in the vagina and the rectum. So again, it can be quite under the radar. Do get it checked out, although not quite as damaging to sterility. It is still damaging to the womb, and is something, especially if you get it many times. The more times you get it, the worse the complications can be. This one I hate. Let's just get it over with. Oh, God. I think we know what this is, don't we? It's a pubic louse. Can also attach themselves to your eyes, which is eyelashes. It likes big, thick hairs. Less said about that, the better. Kind of benign, but you have to treat it. You can get a cream over the counter, and it kills it, and they wander off. So just wander off. Go on. See, I've made it go sideways because it's a crab. I thought it was good. The one I really want to talk about is this chap. You can tell what this is possibly by the little giveaway, but can you see that? See that? Isn't it cute? It's HIV. Well done. You all know your biology. And the reason I want to bring this up is because last week was HIV testing week. I don't know why it was last week and not this week, but it was the first time that free home tests have been available across England for the very first time. So everybody in England could get one. England, because, as I'm sure the NHS nerds will tell you, is to do with the fact that this devolved in a split up in a slightly curious way. Public health, as it happens, belongs to the local authorities, but they obviously do that in cohorts with the NHS and the government, who have a target to eradicate all new HIV infections in the UK by 2030. Is that possible? I think it's very possible. There is HIV again, looking a little more dynamic. I mean, it's almost sexy, isn't it? Oh. Can't survive outside the body for more than 6 seconds. So it's hyped up as being a virus that is more dangerous, or it was in the early days, thought as to be more dangerous than it really is. It leads to a complication left untreated, at least a complex set of illnesses which together form a thing called a syndrome, which is not an individual illness, and that is what AIDS is, which is a term which we tend not to use these days. It's not that it's derogatory or anything, it's just we're trying to separate it from the 1980s We call it sort of advanced HIV these days, and there are other terms for it. But that's why you don't see the term AIDS, because in the 1980s, 1986, this seminal ad came out during Margaret Thatcher's reign. She wasn't that keen on, obviously, all of this openness, but Norman Fowler, her health secretary, was, and instigated this Don't Die of Ignorance campaign, which really did lay it out. But it's an era that we kind of step away from because it's not reflective of the current health situation. There's a lot to unpick in this, but let's just look at the highlights. This is HIV and AIDS diagnosis and deaths by year in the UK. It's from Wikipedia, but the source is actually a government spreadsheet. The red are people who are diagnosed, and that follows in shape the blue line. And the blue line's interesting because it's heterosexual transmissions. So you can see that the diagnosis is largely now, or has been since the late 1990s, about diagnosing it in straight people. Are there any straight people? No, don't. Anybody with gonorrhea? No. The purple line is AIDS and advanced HIV. So this is, you can see it sort of tails off just as this one goes up. That's about treatment. That's about treatment getting effective. And the pea green colour, not a great colour, this golden pea green colour, is deaths. And it just nosedives here and then plateaus. And those are all good signs, but you notice that line, that deaths line, has been level whilst diagnosis has been increasing. So this gap is really something, should tell you a lot about treatment. Treatment is effective. There's a lot of US states in particular who put this out. It's a bit simplistic, but it gets across the point that nowadays, if you're diagnosed with HIV and you start treatment, which is 2, sometimes 4 pills every day with food, that's about it. They've been around for 30 or 40 years. They're don't tend to have any complications. You can live a normal and healthy life. You have a normal life expectancy. And after 6 months, your viral load will be probably be undetectable in most cases. It can be even shorter than that, depending on how advanced you were when you started taking that treatment. Now, undetectable means that not only are you healthy, the undetectable literally means that current tests can't measure the viral load. You still have HIV and will revert if you stop taking them generally, but you can't pass it on. You can't pass it on through sex. You can't pass it on if you're a mother to your unborn child. At that point, somebody on HIV meds who knows they're HIV positive but is undetectable is in many ways a safer bet than somebody who doesn't know their status. You cannot catch HIV from somebody in that scenario. And that's the state of treatment, and it led to this phrase, undetectable equals untransmittable, which I heard in a pub quiz recently, which I thought was quite telling, but it doesn't really grab your attention, but nonetheless it was a campaign that was out there. It does what it says. When people with HIV are undetectable, we're uninfectious. That means that pretty much all the fear HIV-negative people have of those living with us who have HIV is just wasted energy. So that's addressing the stigma point. People with HIV aren't a burden on the NHS. They are not, they're taking a pill that's relatively inexpensive. They are not spreading the disease. They are far from it. They are living healthy lives. And there is no reason to stigmatise those people. And the other game changer is PrEP, which is what happened when they took the drug which treats HIV and instead gave it as a prophylaxis, as a way of preventing HIV. Pre-exposure prophylaxis. And I don't think you're anybody, unless you've been on the Victoria Derbyshire show at 9 a.m. talking about bomb sex, as I have. And PrEP. That's available on all niche media sites. This was a game changer. It was targeted at the really at the gay community to start off with, or the men who have sex with men community, I should say. In 2013, and they sought to examine the behaviour of people who took it and whether they would take it regularly. There was a placebo arm, and there was an arm that had PrEP on it, and after I think about a year and a half, they got the results back and decided that they would abandon. It was not ethical to continue the placebo arm because at that point it was 86% effective. And that 14% that's suggests it's ineffective were 3 men who had acquired HIV because they hadn't been taking it, hadn't been adhering to taking it daily. So taken daily, we know that this will prevent, in all but, I think, a single-digit number of cases across the world, acquisition of HIV. There was all sorts of debate about cost at the time. It would cost around, in 86, it would cost £5,000 a year to treat somebody with PrEP, as opposed to HIV treatment for somebody who has it for £11,000. But the £11,000 you've got to pay every year for the rest of their life. This you only have to pay when they're ill. But in fact, this is no longer... in this form is no longer in patent and is licensed. So the NHS, well, you can acquire it yourself legitimately, legally for between 200 and 700 quid a year. That's if you take it daily, but you don't even need to take it daily. But it is now free on the NHS to certain groups. I won't go through the small print here, but if you're at risk, or if you feel you're at risk, then it is possible to get it for free on the NHS. And there's several ways to take it. As I say, you don't have to take it daily. You can take it on certain events-based schedule or every other day in certain circumstances. And there's hopes for a wider use of different forms of this. So an injection, for instance, which will last 2 or 3 months, which will really help target a demographic, the second largest demographic for people affected by HIV, and that's women from the Black, African and Afro-Caribbean communities who face a certain stigma if they're found to be taking PrEP. The implication is that somehow that's socially not acceptable, and so an injection that you only have to take every 3 months can be done discreetly and hopefully will help target them. But this, it's important if you are going to take PrEP and you are going to order it yourself, you test yourself first, because you must not have HIV when you start taking this, otherwise we risk creating variants that will resist the drug. Which brings us back to testing and what Testing Week is. Test early, test often. There are 2 main, there's one main source, which is Sexual Health London, for anybody here. That is available to anybody who is in a London borough, unless you're in Hillingdon, Croydon or Greenwich. Anybody from Hillingdon, Croydon or Greenwich? I assume they do their own thing, but perhaps they're just... I don't know. Well, but you can go to this website, even if you're from their boroughs, it will tell you where you can get a test, and you can do it by post at home. Not the sexiest thing, and you do have to draw a little bit of blood over your sink and what have you, but that's it, a bit of saliva. Do that regularly, and that is available to everybody. You don't no longer just is it high risk groups. Terence Higgins Trust, I'm going to pick up in particular test.tht.org.uk. Their 40th anniversary this year, and an organisation I've done some work for. So that's one that I recommend looking at for plain information. But there are lots of sources of it. So that's just my little health advice to you nerds. Now that you're getting some regularly, right?